You're listening to the Super Domestique podcast, Canada's premium cycling podcast, brought to you by the Last Drop Cycling Club.
Super Domestique, episode 3. We're back. We have not my partner, but another super couple here today. So it's Regina Chan, Luke Melo. They're Last Drop members. How are you guys doing today?
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. Of course. It's early, but I guess it's not early for us.
You know what? I was talking with Nate on the way over here, and I was like, you know what? It's very different getting on your bicycle at 5:30 in the morning and going to like hold a conversation at 5:30 in the morning. Because the things that we talk about on the bike is like, oh, I forgot to charge my lights. It's still dark out. I feel cold. And like, those are easy conversations to have.
Yeah, Nate has had 2 hours of sleep somehow. You know, it's... But what was it like? Was it a big transition for you, Regina, getting up at 5 in the morning, coming out for a ride, or were you awake at 5 a.m. before you discovered cycling with the Last Drop?
I was definitely not an early person before the Last Drop, but I think I just love cycling so much, and I was so excited to bike that getting up at 5 was just easy peasy at that point.
And Luke, you didn't care?
Getting up at 5:30 is a struggle. It's a lot, but it's worth it, especially like when you're out there. I never regret getting up at that time, but just like that initial moment where you pull yourself out of those blankets in bed, it takes a certain level of willpower. And
What's the mental conversation then for each of you? Like, I know for me, I get up, I'm like, you'll be fine. Give it 10 minutes. You just need 10 minutes of like walking around the house and you'll be awake.
I think for us, it's helpful to have each other because we both go, and we could in person hold each other accountable to wake up. But it was definitely harder when Regina was gone in Taiwan for a couple weeks for me to get myself up to go. But those 2 layers of accountability, one with us together, and then second with the club waiting for you there, and knowing that you're going to leave exactly at 5:30. Like, it forces you to look down at your clock. You can't snooze it. You got to get up. You got to get on your bike and get out of there.
Yeah. No, totally. It was a big transition for me, especially at the start. So I always am curious how people feel about it. So now we have to do it all again this summer. And we have to start waking up at 5 in the morning, just like this. So
for Regina, you did swimming when you were younger, and that's one of those early sports. And that's something that your mom talks about, is getting up super early and driving down to White Rock to hop in the pool.
Yeah, I used to do competitive swimming before high school, or in high school. Yeah, so practices like 4 days a week at 5:30 in the morning, and then again in the evening.
Communal applause for your parents, honestly. You know, it's funny, like, I wake up obviously for our rides, and I do have some comfort that I see the family across the street getting all the hockey bags into the truck and leaving at 5 in the morning, and I'm like, you know what, at least I get to do something fun with my friends. Those parents have to watch their kids play shitty hockey for, you know, an hour every morning at the age of 8 years old.
It's really funny because, like, my mom growing up, she's like, yeah, so in the future, you know, maybe consider what sport you enroll your kid in so that, like, you don't have to get up at 5 in the morning and wait for them.
So I'm curious because can I ask what the ethnic background for you is, Regina? Both parents, same ethnic background or different?
Very similar. So I guess my grandparents, they all come from China, and then my dad, like during the World War, they all fled. So my mom's side fled to Taiwan, and then my dad's side fled to Hong Kong.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So what was sporting or your hobbies when you were a kid? What was that conversation like with your parents? Because I know I did violin as a kid, and like with the Asian experience, I'll say my mom was very much like, either you take this super seriously and this is your career, or you just don't do it.
Yeah, I think my mom let me explore a lot because I was pretty hyper as a kid, and like I need to be at a park, and I needed to like let it out. Otherwise, my parents won't have a good time at night when they're trying to put me to sleep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like enrolled in like ballet classes or like dance classes. I took some piano, like nothing I was like super interested in. But eventually, when I was about 10 years old, I found swimming. So I kind of stuck with that for 8 years. And then on the side, I also did piano. I quit one time and then I kind of went back to it. And then when I went back to it, my mom was like, all right, like if you want to do this, you should like go to the end. So
yeah,
I did end up finishing that.
That's crazy. And why are you not a professional pianist today?
I guess because I enjoyed it, but
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy it enough to do it as a career.
I'm sure Luke wishes he were a professional piano artist.
Yeah, well, she's very good at playing piano. And I think that, like, to kind of complete somebody's upbringing and just to be able to, like, satisfy what your body needs, you need a couple things. You need different outlets.
Oh, totally.
And I think one of those is some sort of artistic outlet. So you need to, like, be drawing, or you need to, like, be playing music, whether that's, like, listening to music a lot or, like, going through piano. And then you need to have some sort of, like, physical thing that you do, something that really exhausts your body. And then I also think that you need like meaningful work as well, something that like gives you purpose as to how you spend your time. And it's like, I think a combination of all those things that really embark on like a good upbringing. And that's something that I see in like Asian parents is really like all of those things coming in, maybe with sometimes too much pressure.
Yeah.
And so many of them at the same time, but the intent is there, and it's always like a tough love, but a true love for sure.
So then what was your thing as a kid, Luke? Obviously you're very into music. You did the skateboarding thing. We'll get into it. But what was that upbringing like? Did you do something like vastly different as a kid?
Yeah, I did not have an Asian upbringing.
Okay. So tell me more about your non-Asian upbringing.
Yeah, well, I'm Canadian. And like I was basically wearing skates as soon as I could start walking. So
are you from the West Coast originally? So West Coast of Canada?
I'm from Toronto. And
okay, yes, we've had this
my parents are my dad is Portuguese,
very
and he was born in Canada, but his parents, so my grandparents, immigrated here from the Azores, which are the islands in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean that are part of Portugal. And then on my mom's side of the family, I'm the 7th generation Canadian. Originally, my side of the family is from Newfoundland and PEI. And they originate from Ireland or Scotland, somewhere around there.
Wow. So accents?
There are slight accents on the East Coast, mostly just loud.
Like very
loud.
That's the accent.
People.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet. I love it. That's amazing. So, so originally from Ontario, I totally get the skates thing. Like gym class for me, I grew up in Ontario too. You know, you put on skates and they like flooded the field and they let the kids out. And that was it. That was like gym classes, like go skating on the field. I'm sure that was similar to what you went through.
Yeah, so I started playing hockey when I was 3 years old and baseball when I was 4. I think I did a year of soccer before that, but I didn't really like it. And it was just back and forth, constant hockey and baseball, winter, summer, until I was maybe 12 or 13 years old. And that really like occupied my time for athletics. That was everything that I was doing. And then I started getting into skateboarding when I was 9 or 10 years old. And then when I started going to middle school, I met my best friend Justin, and we started longboarding together. We found a community of people, and we were super young, like total Groms. And
Groms, define?
Yeah, Groms is like that's not a word in cycling. Yeah, Groms. Yeah, that's the nomenclature there. It's basically just like a really young kid in the sport.
Okay,
so,
perfect.
Like you show up and then you see like, I don't know, there'd be a 13-year-old with a bike. We would call them Groms, and you call them that because you treat them different.
Okay.
Because they're kids.
Okay, well, we could adopt this word. We could adopt it. You know, Jerry is our Groms at the last drop. He's like, you know, anyone who has to sign a release.
It's also a state of mind a little bit. Like, so some people never grow out of being Groms because they don't really like mature beyond that, like that mentality. Like some people, like I very early on figured out how to like socialize with people that are older than me. Because you're like 12, 13 years old and you want to like go to these meetups and like skate with people, but they don't want to hang out with someone that's like 12 or 13 years old. Like these are people 18, 19, like in their 20s, sometimes in their 30s. Like, I don't know, at my age right now, I don't want to hang out with a 12-year-old. So like there's a very large mental jump that you need to make to be able to like immerse yourself in a community and be welcomed that way. So
especially, I guess, with skateboarding, eh?
With skateboarding, it's a very different kind of sport in terms of the way that the community is built and the activity that you do. But I think that the sense of like belonging and community is very much the same. And I see that as like a very large parallel between like the cycling community that we're now involved in and the longboarding community that we've been involved in for a long time.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So it's funny, when I first got to know you guys, I always thought Regina was like the professional skateboarder who did this like crazy thing, because like her social media is beautiful. Like, I didn't realize that, and maybe me being naive to skateboarding, I didn't realize that what you did, Regina, resonated with people, but also it's just beautiful to watch. You like flow on your skateboard, and it's almost like you have dance moves on the skateboard while you're skating.
Yeah, it's
like,
called longboard dancing.
I had no idea. So
yeah.
This is a thing. This is like a thing that exists that people do.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think like longboarding, there's just so many styles. Like Luke does more downhill longboarding, which is what I discovered when I first started skating. I guess there's like cruising, downhill, free ride, longboard dancing / freestyle. So yeah, I started learning more about longboard dancing, and that's kind of what I did.
So influence from Luke, or you did this before you met Luke?
I started doing it when I met Luke. So yeah, I have a friend who does longboard dancing, and then he showed me, and I was just like, I was in awe. I was like, oh my God, this exists. Like, I can't believe you can do this on a longboard. So he was hosting weekly sessions at the time, so I went to one, and then Luke was there also. So that's how we met.
Very nice. Very cute. And now you have to wear spandex on bicycles. How was that transition?
It's quite interesting. I have to be very honest. When I first started cycling, I was like, oh my God, those people in spandex, they're like so serious about cycling. And like, you know, Luke and I, we would joke about it. We're like, oh, like what nerds.
Yeah.
And then now we're like one of them. And, you know, like super nice people. Like, they're not as serious as I thought they would be. I mean, certainly there's some people out there who are.
There's serious people, Regina.
For sure. But I think like just the majority, especially in like TLD and like some of the other clubs I've ridden with, I'm just, everyone's so nice. Everyone's so chill. And I guess it's just, you want to wear the right attire for the sport.
Okay. And what is the right attire for the sport?
It's whatever you're comfortable in. I think that's number one.
For sure.
Yep. And then I guess for cycling, you want to wear like your jersey and your bib shorts, because like bib shorts have paddings in them, so you don't get like butt sores and stuff like that. It's kind of like volleyball shorts. Like they're short and maybe they're functional, but I don't know much about volleyball. But yeah, like you don't have to wear it. You can wear anything else that you want.
Totally. Like I think it's changing. I think it's getting better. But no, I get it. Cycling can be very, as an onlooker, it looks absolutely ridiculous and stupid. But when you're in it, it's amazing, and you don't buy into the culture and what have you. But question, will skateboarding see spandex? Is this something that sport needs to... Like when you were doing the downhill in California, I was like, shouldn't Luke be in like skin tight spandex for this? Like with the most aero gains possible? Yeah,
aero is everything in longboarding for sure. In downhill, when you're racing and I guess practicing for racing, you wear something that's similar to a motorcycle leather suit.
Crazy.
But they're specifically tailored for longboarding, so they typically have like less padding, and they're reduced in size in places that matter for aerodynamic purposes.
And how fast are you going?
So the speed record right now, I think, is about 160 kilometers an hour.
That's
which
horrifying.
Is in Quebec. So they did an event, because you don't want to. There was a couple times where people went out with like Guinness World Records and it would be just them.
Yeah.
And they would be going and they would be like, they would get the speed record, but then everyone's like, oh, somebody else could have been faster. So finally they just put an event together where they said, okay, there's no rules here. You can wear whatever you want and just try and be as fast as you can. So there was like crazy Aero fins that people were using on their legs, and people were getting like skin tight latex sex suits using these things, and there was no limit to what people were doing. And Pete Connolly is the one who holds the speed record currently, and he put a lot of work into that victory. He spent a lot of time in a wind tunnel with some aeronautic engineers and really perfected his tuck.
This seems off-brand for skateboarding, but I love it.
It's this is kind of the parallels that I'm talking about. I think that the downhill longboarding community has a lot of these same obsessions with aerodynamics, and I think that's something that you would probably find very interesting is the distribution in helmets that people wear. They're all inspired by downhill skiing, but there's ones that are more specifically like they work better for longboarding. Because when you're downhill skiing, you're just locked in place and you're looking forward directly.
Yeah.
But on a longboard, you need to be able to turn your head from side to side. So there's a couple different designs, and I think almost none of them are like very safe.
Yeah, I mean, so I was gonna ask you, because I have this conversation when I go down Seymour or Cypress here locally, or any like ridiculously long descent. Do you have the conversation of like, if I fuck this up, I'm gonna die? Because like literally in my head, I'm having this like, if there's a rock in front of me, I'm like at 85 kilometers an hour. Like bad things may happen.
Yeah. It can definitely be really bad, and somebody has died on Seymour as well. Near the bottom, they were taking the right turn off, and there was some gravel on the road, and they skidded out and went into a car, unfortunately. So sometimes there's things that are within your control and out of your control, and all you can really do is worry about those things that are in your control. So like understanding like what your skill level is, understanding the dangers in the road, and trying to account for those things so that you have the lowest chance possible for.
But psychologically in your head, what is that like?
So I think the biggest difference is that there's no brakes on a longboard.
Yes.
So you're accountable. You need to slow yourself down, and there's two ways. You can slide the board, or you can foot brake, where you take one foot off the board and drag it on the ground. After like you put in a bunch of hours, it becomes kind of like an extension of your body, and you really feel connected like through the board into the road. And for instance, like when we went to Tuna Canyon Road in California, we did it the first day on a bicycle and the second day on a longboard for me. And honestly, I felt more comfortable going down on my longboard where I had no brakes than I did on a bicycle with brakes. And that may come with experience, or, I actually don't know where that is, but I think there's a state of mind that you get into when you're riding, and it's like a trance that I've not experienced on a bicycle before, where not only like when I'm riding, not only can I not think of anything else, it like forces me, like it's impossible to think of anything else. It's the one thing that I've done where I'm like truly in the moment and completely focused on a singular task. Whereas like on a bicycle, I find that like on descents, like I'm pretty focused on it, but my mind can wander a little bit. And it's a feeling of like focus and satisfaction that I really like derive a lot of value from in downhill longboarding that I'm still trying to figure out how to get on a bicycle.
That's amazing. I definitely don't have that on a bike. Like I know it exists. I know what you're talking about exists because I know I had posted Tom Pitcock's descent down Tuna, right? That was like big, super viral right now. And he's like hitting 70, 85, but like railing those corners. And you can see the flow. And I feel like that's something that I have definitely not been in, and like I don't understand that world. So it's interesting you should share that, because I feel like that's the only way some of these guys who are extremely talented at descending can do it, because you can't overthink it. I mean, what was tuna like, Regina?
It was pretty scary for me. Yeah, is like I know at the top Luke warned everyone that this is the most like dangerous road you could go down. Like it's life threatening. If you go off one side, you hit a rock wall, or if you go off the other side, you fall off a cliff. So yeah.
So this is a descent Southern California, or it's like Malibu?
Yeah, it's the furthest east road in the Malibu Canyon. And it used to be a two-way road, but the road has eroded away.
Perfect.
So parts
That's
of
great.
it have fallen off, and they turned it into a one-way downhill. So when you watch that video, understand that like when you're using all the real estate that's available to you on the road, that you're not expecting any cars to be coming up at you, because you're supposed to be going down. So like with that in mind, I thought that road would be safer than some of the other roads that have the double yellow line, but really they just present different kind of risk, right? So like here the risk is obvious. You see the cliff, you see the rock wall. But then on the other roads, like you could go through a corner, say you're going through a blind right-hand corner, and it tightens up a little bit on the exit, and you end up on the other side of the yellow line. You may end up like hitting a car, or you may go over the guardrail. Like it's less obvious to the eyes, but it still presents like a very real danger.
Yeah, I was reading that like tuna in particular, the tough thing about it is there's blind undulations in the road. So like even when you're watching people descend, or Tom Pidcock descend, like he has a pedal strike, and I'm like, you're going over the edge. Like if you were not one of the best in the world, you'd be dead by now. But like, yeah, there's just blind undulations in that descent, which makes it all the more scary. I don't want to forget, how do you feel about Luke's insane descending on a skateboard? Longboard.
Oh no. Yeah, I thought it was really cool that he could just like go so fast on his longboard. It definitely takes a certain mentality and skill to be able to do that. So yeah, I mean, most of the time it's impossible to watch him do it. Like it's just in passing that you could watch it for like a second or two. Otherwise, they're usually zooming down faster than cars do.
Yeah.
I think over the years, I've gotten more worried just because he hasn't been skating as much. But I just remind myself, you know, he's been doing this for such a long time. Like he's not someone who would take that type of risk. Like if he's not feeling it that day, then he knows to not like longboard, or he'll like take it easy himself. So I just remind myself that he's okay, and he totally knows, and he'll be safe and just have fun.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Okay, I'm going to use the cards because I ignore what the producers do for us every week. I think last week my wife, Eliza, wrote out beautiful questions. We used one. Okay, so these are interesting. So who's a better cyclist? This is a weird question, though. This is a weird question. Take it for how you will. Okay. Strengths, weaknesses, fashion statements, willingness not to buy a new bike. Speak to that.
I think Luke's the better cyclist here, for sure. Yeah. I think
But in what way? You got to be more specific than that, because...
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you say a good cyclist, I think of someone who's more skilled and like they can handle speeds, or maybe they're faster and stronger. And I think he is all of that.
You're all of that and more.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I have a physiological advantage to being stronger, but that doesn't necessarily make me a better cyclist. I think that like the most value for me in cycling is like how much you enjoy it. And like if you're obsessed with it, then that's like the true indication of like really how you feel about the sport. And like for downhill longboarding, like I was obsessed with doing it. But I wouldn't say that like I'm obsessed with cycling. Like I really enjoy it, and I in fact like got Regina into doing it because I really like doing it. But I would say that like Regina is obsessed with cycling. For
It's
sure.
a problem. Why would you say obsessed?
It occupies her brain a lot.
Yeah, it's fun.
Can confirm. Can confirm.
It's funny, you're so well demeanored, Regina, in the sense that you're like a calm individual, like super nice, very welcoming, all of those great qualities. But when it comes to cycling, you take it seriously. Like any opportunity in the club to improve, you're there, right? Like whether it's LTS Velo or we're going to Vibe Lounge, like you're always the first person to say, yeah, let's do this. I want to do this. But then I think an amazing quality about you too is that you want to understand why. And a lot of people don't do that. They'll say, yeah, I'll sign up for anything. But you're definitely someone who will challenge it, say, why are we doing this? I want to understand the benefits here. Where does that come from?
I don't know. Maybe it's just part of my personality. I think, yeah, when I get into something with cycling specifically, I think it's just something I could really focus on, and that it's just fun to kind of break things down and see where I could improve versus like a lot of people, they'll take up a hobby and it's more of just like a relaxing thing for them. So while it is also relaxing for me, I do find joy in kind of like learning more about the sport and then seeing like where I can go. Because yeah, I don't know. It's
and
fun.
then your other obsession is Gudetama.
I love
Can we
Gudetama.
speak
Yes.
about this?
Yes.
This is I wanted the whole podcast to be this, but you know, Elisa didn't allow it. So tell me, like, where did you watch it for the first time? What is this for the listeners?
Okay. So Gudetama, in an eggshell, if you will.
Yes, in an eggshell.
He is a lazy egg. He comes in many forms, and he's actually a Sanrio character.
Amazing.
From Japan. So I would say the first time I've ever encountered Gudetama, well, I've kind of seen him around, but very specifically.
All your life.
I remember I was at the night market one time with Luke in Richmond, and then they have like a bunch of puffy stickers on the wall. I'm also obsessed with stationery, by the way.
Amazing.
And then I just saw like Gudetama, and he was just like this cute egg, and he comes in so many different forms, and he has this like little bubble butt, and he's just lazy and done with life. And I was just looking at it, and immediately at that moment, I remember being like, wow, this is so cute. And I bought that sticker, and I think we went from there. The obsession kept growing.
That's amazing. So tell me, like, the Netflix show, is that the like original Gudetama like media, or was there something else before that?
There wasn't really media before it, so it's much like Hello Kitty, Cinema Roll, like Melody, like they're more just printed for merch.
Interesting. Okay. And then this Netflix show like came about.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
I like it. I think it's very cute.
Could they have done better with Gudetama?
Honestly, I had no idea what to expect.
Yeah.
So I was maybe slightly disappointed with the ending. I wish there was a little bit more, but I think overall, I just really enjoyed watching it. I thought it was cute. I thought it really captured his personality, or its personality. Yeah.
It was a tragic ending. I was shook. Luke, how do you feel?
I'm a huge supporter of Gudetama. It's very cute.
The ethos, the vibe.
Yeah. The Gudetama is it's a breakdown. It means Gude means lazy and Tama means egg. So the personality of Gudetama is the lazy egg.
Yeah.
Lazy
and
egg.
It's like somebody who's just like lethargic and just like can't bring themselves to like deal.
I feel like we were all in a state of Gudetama during COVID, but anyway, I want to touch on that because it's amazing and everyone should watch Gudetama because it's just, it's cute and beautiful and I love it.
There actually used to be a game. It's called Gudetama Tap. Yeah, and then you can basically collect like a bunch of different Gudetamas by cooking them. Like there's different recipe books and then there's also different events that you can participate in. So in order to like gain more points to be in the top 100, which gives you like a unique Gudetama, you have to trade with other members who also play the game. So I actually found this Discord group, like community, where everyone loves Gudetama and we all play this game. And during events, we're like, we have trades, like 5 trades left here, and we would trade with each other. But unfortunately, just before the Netflix series came out, that game got canceled. But the Discord's still there. We still share our love for each other.
See, you have multiple communities. I love it.
And I think the good thing bringing this back to cycling
Yes.
is that Gudetama has indirectly got Regina into Discord, and all the skills that she got with like moderating in Discord
Yes.
have come from the Gudetama server specifically.
Amazing.
So when our club switched over from Slack to Discord, we were on very good footing because you had all that experience.
I tried.
We're very grateful for your Discord leadership, Regina. It's very needed. I want to touch on something before, obviously, we get to the end here, which is, what do you do for work, Luke?
Yeah, so I wear kind of many hats. Formerly, I work for the University of British Columbia. So I work in a chemistry lab that I did my PhD in, technically a postdoctoral fellow. So the kind of different roles that I have there is I manage a group of students that do various forms of microscopy.
Amazing.
So you analyze materials with lasers and you get information about how the molecules vibrate, and every molecule has a different unique signature, and you can do identification of different materials, and then you can also say how much of each material is in that. So I've built a couple different microscopes that are able to classify materials ranging from pulp and paper products to nanoparticles to now we're working with a company on looking for elements in soils, which are particularly difficult because they're fluorescent. So that's one side of it, and then the other side of it is we collaborate with a hospital in Milan to study electrophysiology. So I just got back from a conference in Milan a few days ago, and this hospital is the leading research center on a specific disease that causes sudden cardiac death called Brugada syndrome. And they do the diagnosis in the hospital, and they do the treatment as well. So this disease is particularly difficult because the first symptom is often just death. It's a sudden cardiac death, and you're asymptomatic before that. And the way that they diagnose it is by using a sodium channel blocker drug, which is administered in the operating room. Because you can imagine the sodium channels in your heart are what regulate the current that goes through it. It controls your heartbeat, and you can go into ventricle fibrillation if there's too much of this drug applied, and it's not really available everywhere, so it's not FDA approved. The way that I fit into this project is we use a lot of the software and algorithms that we design to process the kind of data that we get from the vibrational signature of molecules to the waveforms that your body presents in the form of an electrocardiogram. So I use machine learning to analyze those electrocardiograms and do our best to circumvent the need for using a drug challenge to diagnose the disease. So that's where it is at this state. We have a lot of different avenues of research that we're looking to follow up on this going forward. But that's kind of where I split the other part of my time too. So we have a startup company and we own the technology, the intellectual property for how we actually process this data and the machine learning. And we're looking to expand upon this, and we're starting to collaborate with an instrument maker as well.
That's amazing. It's funny how I understand some of the nomenclature because I work in that world. But I want to get your take on research in Canada, because I know that it's a fight we have at the hospital, and we have 5 research centers that do amazing work. But is it something that we need to just do a way better job of supporting in Canada? Because I feel like a lot of researchers like yourself have to either have biomedical startups or you're partnered with a university somewhere else in the world, and we don't have that type of approval process here for research or clinical research.
Yeah, I think that it's been very stagnant. And there's a reason why a lot of PhDs end up going to the United States, because there's just significantly more opportunities there for research. I think that in terms of government funding, that the ceiling for like the full pot of money that's available from the government that gets distributed out through different research channels has not increased in 20 years.
Yep. That's why I guess digital supercluster is something that's trying to fill a gap, but it doesn't really in a lot of ways.
And it's just not enough. And like, I think that the Canadian economy is really largely based in like deliverable goods like pulp and paper products, natural resources. But there's such a possibility for like the STEM field to really flourish in Canada as well, but it's really not well supported at the government level. So either you need to be exceptionally good at writing grant applications and secure funding for what you want to do, which is a great skill to have, or the more common other route is to find private investing and through a startup. So there's a lot of potential here and a lot of very, very good researchers, but we do see a lot of talent go to the United States because it's just, there's a lot more resources there to more fairly compensate the people that are doing this work. And also the amount of technology in terms of physical instruments, if that's your field of research, is also more than Canada.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, we fight, I think most of the mass spectrometry that exists in British Columbia is donor funded, or it's funded by private dollars. So I get that. See, Super Domestique podcast, you get everything. We're diving into biomedical engineering. We're taking a good stance. This is not medical advice. This is not medical advice. Yes, but if the government could throw more money into clinical research, that would be fantastic and support people.
Absolutely, I'm with you.
Yeah, I think just to end it on that point, one of the not tragedies, but one of the things we hear from amazing superstar researchers in Canada is we just want to do our research in our own country, and you're forced to go somewhere else to pursue that, which is not what we want, right? People want to be with their families where they work, right? So I'll get off my soapbox, but thanks for sharing that with us. Thanks for the work you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, no, of course. So Regina, I want to know, how do you feel about Saturday? Are you excited?
Oh, my triathlon's on Saturday.
Yes, what is on Saturday?
Okay, so I'm participating in my first triathlon, standard length.
Yes. What's standard length?
Standard length is 1,500 meters of swimming, followed by 40 kilometers of riding, and then 10K of running.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I've been training for it for the past just a little over 3 months now. Joannie's been coaching me, and she's been helping me with my training plan and everything. So I have to say I feel ready to tackle this. And I do have some goal times, although I'm not sure if I'll meet them. But I do feel, prepared. I'm excited, but nervous at the same time. I hope the weather holds up. I don't know if it's going to call for snow or rain or sun even. Who knows? It's Vancouver.
No, yeah. Exactly. What was the biggest barrier to your triathlon journey? I feel like everyone you ask almost about triathlon is like, it's swimming. I just can't swim.
Yeah, I think it was initially, I've been thinking about doing this for maybe 3 to 4 years now. And initially it was cycling.
Really?
Yeah, because I had this small mountain bike that my dad had brought back when I was a kid from Hong Kong. And, it was a good bike, but it's not like a carbon road bike or even just a regular road bike. So I was like, man, 40 kilometers, that's just so far to cycle. But eventually when I got into cycling, I think that's when I really was able to consider, I'm like, maybe I can do this. And then running actually became my biggest barrier. But I did a 10K before, I ran a half marathon before. So I was like, I think I can do it with the cycling, with a bit of training. Yeah, the biggest holdback was actually how cold the weather was going to be.
Totally.
And, yeah.
It's crazy that they do it this time of year, but I get it. And the swimming portion's indoor.
Yeah, right? That's one of the big reasons I chose the UBC one.
Yeah, that makes sense. So after this Ironman?
I was telling all my friends about this, but I think this is going to be my first and last triathlon.
Okay, well, we'll see. We'll see. The way that this usually goes down.
It's a lot of training, I have to say. And I just can't imagine, like, for Ironman, half Ironman, the length is, I think it's like 3 times as much already, maybe even more.
Oh, it's crazy.
It's insane. Like, kudos to, it's a huge feat to anyone who can do it. But, like, considering how much I'm already training for this triathlon, just the standard length, like, I can't imagine how much more volume and time I would have to put into a half. And yeah, I mean, I do enjoy the training process. I just don't know if I'll enjoy it for like 2 years.
It's a different level, man. Like, I watch some of those Ironman videos of them crossing the finish line and they're like done. We don't cross the finish line in bike races and we're like on the floor like convulsing and need like someone to put like what are those like heated blanket things over you? Yeah. So good luck, Regina. You'll be fine. You'll kill it. We're all with you, especially a rad in your head. It's going to be like, let's go, Regina. So we have cycling faux pas.
Okay.
They exist. Every sport has faux pas. We're going to get into it. I need to know your thoughts. I have very hard opinions, as you guys know, but I guess that's my personality. But, okay. Something I'm very passionate about, which is bike washing. How often? How do you do it? Why do you do it? When do you do it? Do you wash your bikes?
I don't wash my bikes.
Good
I just wipe
answer.
it down. I just wipe it down. Yeah.
Well
and clean
done,
it with
Regina.
like a toothbrush and some warm water, and then grease it right after. And he does most of the other stuff. Yeah.
I clean my bike very aggressively.
Can we talk about this? Because like, okay, Luke, like you're good at the sport. You got the steel bike, mad respect. Like, when is the carbon bike coming? Or is it ever coming? Is this like we've made it a big deal now, so like you can't do it?
I like nice things, so it will come.
It will come.
It will come. Yeah. I've got a lot of value out of this bike, you know. I've had it since 2015.
And what is it?
It's a 1983 Norco Nishiki.
With 2022 Ultegra.
Yeah, it has a Claris group set, which, talking about faux pas, I didn't know how faux pas this is. So it's a 3x8 drivetrain. And I saw a meme around Christmas time that says Santa brings naughty cyclists a Claris group set for Christmas.
It's true, though, but that's okay.
And well, it's what fits on the bike, right?
Yeah.
And I can say, like, the difference between the parts that were originally on it and these parts are absolute night and day difference. And they enabled me to not like throw the bike away pretty much. But what is nice is like just how sturdy it is, and that I can treat it like absolute garbage and it doesn't even matter. Like, for instance, on our trip down to California, they put my bike right at the end of the van. And Nate, our producer's laughing because he was the one who had to deal with the blunt end of this. On the way back, we were trying to put all the bikes back in the van, and we, right through the front of the fork, we secure it down into this wooden structure in the van. Yeah. And like they tried to secure mine down so much so it wouldn't like fall over onto the other bikes that my bike actually broke the wooden thing that secures the bikes in. So it defeated the bike, or defeated the van. And what we ended up having to do is we took the truck straps and actually just strapped it right down to the base of the car. And,
perfect. I don't know how you're going to do with a modern bike. You're going to be like, I can't. It's too much work.
You know what's honestly the biggest thing that wants me to move to a new bike is the maintenance. Like, the number of parts that are on modern bikes are just significantly less. Like, all the wiring is routed internally through the frame, and like the through axles are super nice as well. And it's just like so much easier to take care of. Like, I'll put Regina's bike up on the bike stand and work on it, and then I'll do mine. And I feel like I'm doing surgery on my bike every time I try and take it apart.
It's crazy.
So at a certain point, I'll become very frustrated with it. But at the same time, I think that like riding a heavier bike has made me a lot stronger.
Oh my God.
As well.
So this is what Luke jokes. Or the other week we were having this conversation. He's like, you know, Regina, I feel like every time I ride with you, my heart rate doesn't go that high. And, you know, this whole time when I ride with you, I'm just doing like zone 2 base training.
Perfect. Maybe okay, what's the advice for me then? Do I get my wife into this sport? Because she's very resistant.
I think it's up to her. Like for me, getting into it, I was kind of resistant as well, but then he wasn't really part of a cycling club or like anything. He was just like, I think you'll enjoy it. So I think it came from like a perspective of like making me happy and like letting me find an outlet or something to do. Yeah. And then I think it took a lot of patience, and his friend also biked. So I tried his like, what was it? It was a Surly, just like a city bike type of thing. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. And I could see all the places that we could go and how chill everything was. And we did a lot of like coffee and food rides. Like every time we go out somewhere, it was to see something new. And I think
amazing.
Like through all of that, I just loved biking more and more until I was like, okay, I really want to ride more with people and I want to ride with clubs. Yeah.
That's awesome. It's funny, the journey with cycling with Eliza, I think, is a bit different, and we'll get there. Maybe Eliza needs to, just go solo with you, Regina.
Yeah, let's go. I have another bike, so we can go sometime. I'll take you out. We can go get donuts. We can go get coffee. We can go to the beach. We can have a girly time.
It doesn't have to be at 5:30 in the morning.
No,
it has to be at 5:30 in the morning.
I mean, Jam and Luke can go at 5:30 in the morning, and then Eliza
and struggle to find a coffee shop because they're not even open.
That is such a struggle in Vancouver, honestly.
You know what? It's really bad in North Van. North Van, it's really, really bad. But so we should end off, but I want to end off in a way that you guys ask me a question, because you've had to deal with me for the last few years, whether that's on bike rides or that's now sitting at a podcast. But any weird curiosities you have about me, my life, or even TLD?
It's a good question.
See, I've stumped the couple.
Yeah. I wonder what it's like to like what the difference is that you find between like a gravel riding community and a road cycling community.
Yeah, it's a good question. I come from mountain bikes, then did the road bike thing, got the fitness back up, and now I'm very much, I would say, a gravel racer. Like, I'd love to do a road event, but they scare me, which is funny. And then I'll do a 200K gravel event and it'll be fine. But the communities are vastly different. They really, really are. You show up to the start line at a road race and it is dead focus. Maybe there's some joking around. The teams are doing their own thing. Gravel is like an individual mental battle. And I think the community knows that and realizes that. So it's very encouraging. Like it is not seen in road cycling for someone else to stop and like hand you a tube or hand you a CO2 and like, you'll be fine. Get back on the bike. We'll see you. In gravel cycling, it's very much like that. It's like people will help. And I think that's the culture. It's more inclusive. Funny enough, I see more amateur riders doing gravel first. So you see that at events. And I think the other thing is it is just way more of an individual pursuit because there is no drafting. I mean, there's a little bit here and there, but really it's you versus the terrain and you versus your body. And I think that makes for, I don't want to say a better culture around cycling and racing and such, but it definitely provides a lot of empathy that I don't think happens with the road community as much as it should, and we're trying to get it there. But
well, I was going to say that it seems like a lot of those values are things that I saw initially in the last drop joining. And for us joining the club, like we weren't really in any other cycling clubs beforehand, so this was a first impression for us to see. And like what I've heard for such a long time is this like level of elitism that exists within the road cycling community. And like, I doubted that was a thing just like being part of the last drop. So it's great to see that kind of like inclusiveness being brought over from a different community into road cycling, because for us, like I was not like a super enthusiast road cyclist trying to join the club. Like, this is the first time joining the club. Like, I didn't even have any cycling kit when I joined. And like the level of like inclusion that me and Regina felt, I think her as well, was like something that really kept us in the club. And I could imagine that if we tried to join like a different cycling club where they're like a little bit more abrasive and a little bit more elitist, that it would have like turned me off at a very early stage where I was trying to make a decision of how much I want to like invest myself into the sport.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate that comment for sure, Luke. It's been a tough balance, but I think the mantra of the last drop is like kill the community with kindness in a lot of ways, and we hope that others start to feel that, and they don't have to adopt the culture, I think, of the last drop, but recognize that it's there, and we're trying to make sure anyone can get on a bike and come to a ride. And yeah, you know, it's funny. I just hope, Luke, that you do join another club and you bring your really, really heavy metal steel road bike, and then you destroy all the people on their carbon Pinarellos. That's my hope. So you should join another club, Luke.
Great.
Yeah, and make them very angry, and then you'll be back at the last drop. But I think we'll end there. This was fantastic, you guys. Thank you for coming at 5 o'clock in the morning and not riding a bike, but having a conversation. That's huge.
Yeah, thank you so much for welcoming us into your home. It was very nice to be here, and it was a lot of fun to do the podcast this morning. So thank you.
No, of course. Thank you, guys.
Fun. Thank you.
Fist bumps all around. Let's go.
Yes.
And that's a wrap. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for checking out the Super Domestique podcast. Follow us on Instagram or find us at thelastdrop.cc to learn more.